Hey friends, ETJ Writes here. So today I thought we would do something a little bit different. So one of the things that got me into writing was my love of stories. Reading them, seeing films and plays, listening to stories like radio plays, books that are read out loud, all sorts of different things. And I'm always reading something. Sometimes it's genres I love and appreciate, sci-fi, fantasy, murder mysteries. I was really into Hercule Poirot when I was younger. But I also like to read outside of my preferred genres, try to stay away from horror. I'm not a really big horror fan, don't really like it so much, but every so often a book crosses my path that has some of those elements in, and sometimes it's worth reading outside of your genre to really understand what other writers are doing, what other readers are consuming, and sometimes you might just discover a book that you never would have realized becomes your favorite book. Okay, so with that introduction, let me tell you about what I am reading this month. It might be the same next month, or hopefully I'll have gotten some new books because I love reading, but sometimes writing my own story keeps me pretty busy. This month I've been reading The Face of a Rogue by L.T. Anderson, Spin the Dawn by Elizabeth Lynn, Star Touched by A.L. Kaplan, and Mirrorgate by Jeff Wheeler. And I may have mentioned Jeff Wheeler before, but he's really become one of my favorite authors this past year. I've read from last year to this year 15 of his books, so I've really been enjoying reading them. But I've also, like I said, started Spin the Dawn, which is a book that came out last year, I believe, and I saw it on social media. I thought, this looks really fun and interesting. It's about a girl in China who has to disguise herself as a boy to go to the tailor's courts, the empress court, to become the court tailor and save her family. And you can see where some of it's kind of similar to Mulan. I believe the author has written some takes on some of the Disney tales for Disney. I don't remember exactly what they're called, but it's some kind of version of Mulan, and you can see where, like, oh, I can see this is a little bit inspired by, but at the same time, there's tons of elements that make it really different, and that's a really fun read. I'm only, let's see, 8% through the story right now, so the further I get, the more I'll have to say about it, I think. Then with, let's see here, Face of a Rogue, that's the second in a series about these types of people called changers who have the ability to change their appearance into anything they want to. I don't want to spoil the first book, but suffice to say that the way they change, it's pretty nasty. Think a little bit Soylent Green and you'll be on the right track. And that's an indie published book. The first one I wasn't super into, but now that I have been introduced to the world and characters, the second book is a lot easier to follow and understand, particularly since we spent a lot of time with the bad guys. Their story is really fascinating to me. But the one that I'm going to talk about the most, after that long rambly preamble, is Star Touched. I had the pleasure of meeting the author at a book convention, and it has this lovely little bookmark here that has the book and everything on it, and I've been using that to mark my place as I go along. But like I said, I had the pleasure of meeting the author at a convention. The book looked really interesting. She sold it pretty well to me, so of course I picked up a copy. It's not too long. It's let's see, a little over 260 pages, and features a very colorful cast of characters. So I haven't finished it yet. I'm close to the end. Well, I'm more than halfway. I'd say probably 60-75% through. I haven't updated my Goodreads to what page I'm at yet for it to tell me, but based on how far I am through, that's what I think. And my thoughts about this book. I like it so far. It's not my favorite. There are other books that have captured my attention much more fully, but as far as a YA book goes, I think it's really nice. It does touch on some darker themes. Nothing is explicit, but there's some terrible things that happen to the main character as part of her backstory, and it's pretty sad. I think it's a book that younger teens could read and enjoy, but for some of the darker themes, it might be good to have an adult read the book first so that they can read with discernment and explain, okay, what does this mean? What does that mean? I don't think people should be barred from reading it, but that they should just be able to read it with caution. Like I said, some pretty terrible things happen to the main character, and given her a lot of trauma that she is carrying with her throughout this book. So what is Star Touched about? Well, the summary: a new breed of human has appeared, the Star Touched, who have the ability to both heal and destroy. 18-year-old Tatiana is running from her past and her star-touched powers 8 years after a meteor devastates Earth's population. Her power to heal may be overshadowed by more destructive abilities. Fleeing the persecution of those like her, Tatiana seeks refuge in a small town she once visited. But this civil haven, in a world where society has broken down, is beginning to crumble. Will Tatiana flee or stay and fight for the new life she has built? So it's, like I said, it's pretty interesting backstory of the main character. One of the things that is cleverly done is there's popular right now the style called epigraphs, where at the beginning of a chapter the author has like a little snippet of, it could be a journal or a newspaper or little flashbacks, and that's what this book has, little flashbacks. I believe they're mostly in linear order. Some of them seem to be a little further in the past, and some of them seem to be more close to the events of the narrative, but it's mostly like Tatiana when she's little, and then as things start to go wrong, and there's always like however long ADR, which is the after the day of reckoning, or sometimes it's before the day of reckoning. I think that's what that stands for. I have to double check that, but it's this time when the meteor showers came down and just completely destroyed the Earth. So it's kind of devolved back to this, I would say like late 1800s type of time. They still have guns, they don't have internet, so that's a pretty big thing. Everyone remembers it. They don't have cars, but they do have horses. And it's kind of fun to read about. It's almost like a slightly, I don't know, like the Wild West. And every man fends for himself, except in these small little towns where people are like knit together, holding together. The problem is, once these towns have been established and people are finally feeling safe after the meteor showers, then you have the people in the town who want to take advantage of that. And there's this guy called, it's either Mako or Mako. I'm not really quite sure what the correct pronunciation will be. In my head, I've been saying Mako, but it could be Mako. So if I'm pronouncing it wrong, A.L. Kaplan, I sincerely apologize. But we have the cast of characters. Mako is the bad guy. He's the mayor of the town, and he's kind of got a bunch of people under his thumb. He's been extorting people. Just think like your Al Capone type crime boss. Then we have Gareth, who runs the local tavern, because I think every good adventure story has a tavern in it. So he runs the local tavern, and he has a habit of taking in these young ladies who have nowhere to go. So he has them work in his shop, and they are, in return, are able to be safe. And Gareth is, he's one of these people that has a really good sense of morals and very upright, and everyone who comes his way feels safe with him. And of course, the bad guys want to take advantage of him, because one of the things about Star Touched is it's not just Tatiana's story. It's actually the story of a bunch of people, the people who are brave and hardworking and strong. So we have Tatiana, the main character. We have Bobby Sue, which it's such a grown-up name. I always forget she's only 19 in the story. But Bobby Sue and her adventures, the drunk that tries to woo her, and the I forget what he's called now, the Brother of Light, something like that. Brother William is part of a guy who, he's a guy who's part of a group of people that try to keep the Star Touched safe from people trying to hurt them. Brother William and Bobby Sue's little romance is fun to read about. And then we have some of the other girls, and one of them seems maybe to be an antagonist, and she has some halfway, more than halfway through the book now. It was a little slow reading at first, I will say that. And I personally struggled with the chapters being really, really short. For me, I prefer long chapters with long scenes. There's been books I've read before where a whole chapter was 20,000 words, and for me it's like that's what I love, just sinking into a big long chapter. I like to write long chapters too, maybe not 20,000 words, but definitely long. I like to sit with the characters and experience what they're doing, get inside someone's head for a while, and it's been a struggle jumping back and forth between all these short chapters. But again, this is written for a younger audience, and sometimes the younger teens, they need those short chapters to really help them propel through the book from beginning to end. So I totally understand the style of the writing because it is aimed at a younger audience, and particularly if you're a young teen with lots of responsibilities as far as school goes and other things. If you just have the time in the day to grab a little short section here and there, that's perfect, and you can still keep up with what's going on. Just for me, I personally really like long chapters. So like I said, it felt a little slow, and then we got to the middle, and then things really started picking up, and I found myself being more engaged with the book, turning the pages more, being like, ooh, interesting things are happening. So I'm actually really excited now to get to the end and see what happens, because some crazy stuff has gone down already. And I can't give any spoilers, but one of them, it does involve Tatiana's little dog. Yeah, so not saying anything, but anyway. Tatiana and her friends are in a position in the book right now where some things may be resolved, but other things definitely are not, and there's still some looming tension, some looming danger, and at this point I don't know what it is. So I'm really excited to keep reading and find out. And of course, once I finish reading this book, I'll be posting a review. I might come back and link under this video to the review and let you all know what I think about it. But there you go. That, I'll hold it up again, is what I'm reading this month. You can find A.L. Kaplan on Twitter. I'll link to her social media and her website below, and as well as the other books I'm reading. I'll put a link to like their Amazon or something like that, so you can all go and check them out for yourselves. I don't get any sponsoring or anything for that. I just think that, you know, you guys should have the chance to check those out, and I'll make it easy on you guys to find them, particularly because it's Indie April, and I think this book is indie published. I'm not 100% sure, but I believe it is. And I think it's really, really important to support indie publishers. I'm an indie myself. I want to say the Rogue Changers series, that's indie published. And even though Jeff Wheeler is technically traditionally published right now, I think it's through an Amazon imprint, and he started out self-publishing. So there's some really, really good authors in the game who are self-publishing. If you go on Twitter right now, there's the Indie April hashtag, so fill up your TBR and get cracking with those books. So like I said, Star Touched, pretty good read, especially if you're a younger reader. The shorter chapters do make it easier, I think, for younger readers to get through more quickly, especially if you have limited time. But it is probably good to read it with discernment, maybe have an adult read it over as well, so that any of the darker sections can be talked about in, what word do I want to use? In a discerning, I guess I'll just use the word again, discerning manner. So that's where we are, and I will come back next month with whatever I'm reading next month. I hope to be finished with Star Touched by then. We'll see how far through I am those other books I mentioned, and if I'm far enough in to pick one and talk about it. Well, until then, happy reading. ETJ out.